Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Happy Sunday to everybody. As you wrap up our week, or your week, we start our week with another slate of Pewter Report podcasts as we are out at training camp today. And the stars were shining bright with the Bucs' best players, particularly at wide receiver, with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin putting on a show in front of tons and tons of Bucs fans. We'll talk about their performance and a lot more during today's episode. My name is Matt Matera. I'm your co-host, and co-hosting with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com. It is SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, it's nice to finally be warm after being absolutely drenched at training camp earlier this morning by our own doing. And a lot of news that came out of the return to practice after a day off on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a hot one today. I've been doing this a long time, Matt. It probably wasn't a top 10 day in terms of heat and just brutal sun and roasting conditions, but it was probably top 15. So it was definitely a scorcher. So, we did have our first injury of training camp, unfortunately. Calijah Kancey went down. We reported that just minutes after it happened. The Bucs' first-round draft pick defensive tackle, Calijah Kancey, and who I was supposed to talk to today for a Bucs training camp diary, went down with a right calf injury. Looks like a strain. That's what the initial diagnosis is. They're going to do MRIs to see if it's just pulled or if it's torn. And we've been down this road before with Vita Vea, where he missed several weeks. And my guess is that we'll probably not see Calijah Kancey till the first week of the season. I think this is going to be probably a month-long thing. If it's something where he can return to action sooner, you might see him in that final preseason game. But I think it's probably a safe bet that he is going to be out of action and miss the first two preseason games at least. So that's kind of what I'm hearing right now. And they'll have something more definitive later for us once he has the MRI. So it certainly is not something that you want to start the day off with. But man, it was quite a day for the Buccaneers, offensively and defensively. This was like one of those practices, Matt, that just seemed like it was back and forth. A lot of pass breakups by the defensive backs, a lot of touchdown passes by the offense. So it was some really good give and take. The Bucs were in shells today. That means shoulder pads along with shorts. Some players kind of work like cut off football pants.
Yeah.
Not exactly jorts because they're not wearing jeans, but not like running around shorts too. So I think we'll see the full pads tomorrow, but a very good action-packed training camp practice today. And probably, actually, I'm not going to say probably. I would say the best training camp performance we've seen to date from Kyle Trask, dating back to last year and his rookie season. Had a chance, you and I, we talked with some Bucs insiders today after practice, and they agree. They thought this was Kyle Trask's best practice. He was very assertive.
Yeah.
He was just very decisive, quick, rhythmic. It was a really, really good day. No turnovers from Kyle Trask. One interception. We'll talk about that later. But, man, Kyle Trask was slinging it today to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And those two guys put on a show, as you said. And not just for Kyle Trask, but for Baker Mayfield and John Wolford, too.
Yeah, John Wolford had a heck of a day. He was probably the second best quarterback out there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in a little bit. But I'm glad you said the word slinging it, that Kyle Trask was slinging it around there, because he was a gunslinger today.
Yeah.
I think the Bucs have been looking for a gunslinger really since Tom Brady retired. And I wouldn't even say that Tom Brady is a gunslinger, but Tom Brady is a leader and someone that commands respect. And obviously he's carved out his Hall of Fame career. But the Bucs needed someone to be a little more assertive. And Baker Mayfield, of course, has that chip on his shoulder mentality, and he's going to be loud and abrasive in a good way and all that fanfare. But we saw a little bit of it from Kyle Trask today. Maybe not vocally necessarily, but he's just super, super decisive. We've talked about it a lot with him running, with the scrambling. He commits to it and goes to it right away. But while Baker struggled today with some pass breakups and a tipped ball at the line of scrimmage by the Incredible Hulk with the beard, Pat O'Connor, Kyle Trask used his 6'5" height to his advantage and was making a lot of great throws. Baker had the highlight play, but that was more the receiver that made the play than necessarily Baker on the throw. But Kyle Trask, a lot to point to say this guy is in the running for the quarterback competition. I know a lot of us are anointing Baker. Right. If I had to choose, I'd probably go with Baker as well. But Kyle Trask is not making this easy. Both quarterbacks are playing at a fairly high level, granted some struggles here and there. But if you're, if you're doing Trask time, if that's who you're rooting for, you got to be happy with what Kyle Trask brought specifically today and moving forward.
Exactly, Matt. Well said. And let's go back to the Dave Canales podcast when we had Dave on this summer. What he was talking about when I said, "Is this going to come down to which guy doesn't make the mistakes? That the throws the most interceptions. The other guy is going to be your starter." And he said, yes, but let's look at it another way. What if both of these guys play really, really well? And we're kind of starting to see that now. To be fair, Kyle Trask was with the ones, but he looked like he was with the ones today. He looked like he's starting quarterback today. And it's not like he hasn't in instances. He'd have a good period here or he had some good throws there. But today just seemed like was his best practice start to finish. And the arrow's pointing up, and we'll see if he can sustain it. But Baker Mayfield was with the number twos, so you have to kind of factor that in a little bit. But I was excited to see Trask he just had this little aura about him that we haven't really seen before. And we'll see if this continues. And I wonder if he's kind of looking at Baker and saying, I got to ratchet my game up, or is this that, Lewis saying something to him, or Dave Canales, or Todd Bowles or Jason Light. I just wonder if somebody said something like, hey, man, like amp this up. It's like, we've seen him a couple times now be really decisive as a runner, use that mobility. You wrote a great story on how mobile Kyle Trask has been with losing the weight, rolling out, and, making some plays with his feet. We saw now for 2 practices, I think back-to-back, Friday and then today, Kyle Trask down in the red zone when he sees an open lane, he's just taken off running straight towards the end zone and all of that. He just about spiked the ball today, Matt. He almost did it. We've talked about it on the sidelines, the Pewter Report team or Pewter Report gang, as we call ourselves. We're like, just spike it, Trask. Just like, win over some more fans. Just show a little bit more emotion.
Exactly. That's how you said it best, because he did run the other day, and most likely he would have been tackled at the 2 or 3 yard line, and no one's going to hit the quarterback.
Right.
And we agreed on that sentiment. And then you said, well, even if he goes in and he spikes it in the game, it may not have been a touchdown, but right here in training camp, you're going to gain 5,000 more fans just because you did something awesome by spiking the football. And he came much, much closer today. So maybe that's just like the evolution of Kyle Trask as a quarterback in the NFL from year 1 now going to year 3. For him spiking the football, it's going to take him a little bit more as well. I bet by next week he's going to run into the end zone and dunk over the goalpost.
He might.
Because he can't do it in a game. That's a penalty, but you can do it in practice.
Yeah, he's 6'5", so I think he probably has the up to do that. But just like how fans would love to see Todd Bowles kind of blow his top or just show some emotion or get animated. I think they're kind of maybe wanting the same thing from Kyle Trask. And that's not a bad thing. When you're a quarterback, I'm not saying you've got to put on a show or be more demonstrative or be somebody that you're not. But that leadership part, I mean, like that's part of it. It's you have to motivate. You've got to rally. You've got to be the leader out there in the huddle, whether you have a C on your chest or not just the C for Celsius, but the C for captain. So I mean, I was really impressed with Kyle Trask and listen, he got a lot of help today. I mean, we saw the receivers just kind of go nuts today. And it wasn't that the defensive backs played poorly.
No, a lot of DBs had a great day. Carlton Davis
was fantastic. He had 3 pass breakups today, including one on Chris Godwin, one on Mike Evans. So he was, doing his job against the Bucs big guns. But another receiver that kind of stepped up, and we'll continue to talk about Godwin and Evans, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about David Moore.
Yes.
Now, not former Bucs tight end Dave Moore. This is David Moore, former Seattle Seahawks wide receiver and Chicago Bears receiver. He's got a history in this offense, Matt, and I think he's kind of one of those dark horse guys that could be hanging around for that wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 job. He knows this offense. I saw him talk to Dave Canales a couple times, probably recalling things from Seattle. The picture doesn't do it much justice because I had to crop it to fit, but he is skying up for the ball. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds. Imagine Chris Godwin, but about an inch shorter and about 10 to 12 pounds heavier. That's David Moore. He's kind of a thick dude, almost has a running back build, but caught touchdown passes from both Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask today, and was really just kind of stepping up, And so we talked about Trey Palmer in the offseason. We've talked about Raheem Jarrett. And we got to throw this guy in the mix in terms of a receiver that's kind of gaining some momentum.
We absolutely do. I asked Todd Bowles after practice about David Moore, and the immediate thing he turned to is the experience that he has coming from an offense that's very similar to what Dave Canales is running, obviously, here with the Buccaneers. But then Bowles expanded upon the fact that David Moore is helping out so many of these young undrafted free agents or a late round draft pick such as Trey Palmer. And it's great to see, knowing that David Moore is also competing with these guys for a roster spot as well. So I think Moore, even going back to OTAs and minicamp and now with training camp, showing his value in more than just what he can do as a player, and what he's able to do as a wide receiver has been really, really good for the Buccaneers. 2 touchdowns today. One of them, I believe, was in red zone work as well. They both might have. And you just see him finding the pocket in the defense or running the route the perfect way.
Perfectly blocked out Jamel Dean on a slant from Kyle Trask. And I mean, it was a rifle pass from Trask right on the money.
And as we're learning with this offense, it's like, yes, there's a lot of eye candy and yes, there's a lot of movements, but the routes and things themselves are not like out of this world crazy. They're pretty like simple to a degree after all the motions and stuff like that. So if you have good fundamentals on this Buccaneers offense, specifically as a wide receiver, I'm not going to say it's a layup because that's unfair to the defense, but you're already putting yourself halfway to the finish line just by something very simple that anyone can really accomplish as an NFL player.
With bigger bodied receivers, 6'5", 225-pound Mike Evans, 6 foot, 220-pound David Moore, 6'1", 205, 210-pound Chris Godwin. These are guys that can use their physicality, use their size, box out the defensive back, kind of put them in the trail position, especially on slant passes, especially around the goal line. And, for all of the good things that the Bruce Arians offense had, the vertical routes and all of that, we didn't see enough not screen. Sorry, we saw too many screens.
Properly designed screens.
Yes, we didn't see enough slant passes, in my opinion. A lot of the, the shorter stuff was comebacks and curls.
Yes.
And what that did was that allowed receivers to catch the ball with their, kind of like shielding the defender, right? So they're kind of safe passes. But the problem with comebacks and curls is it doesn't allow for yards after catch because you're catching the ball with your back to the end zone. You have to turn around to make a play. With these slants, whether it's by the goal line for a touchdown or as we saw, Cade Warner caught a really nice slant today from Kyle Trask, who really was throwing heaters today on those slants, or Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or David Moore. The slant is a big time weapon in this offense. And if you get the ball to one of these bigger guys, they can shake a tackle and get yards after the catch, or throw it to a guy like Devin Tompkins, and he's just gone, man. It's instant yards after catch.
The Bucs are straight up mocking Michael Thomas by how well they are able to run the slant. And Mike Evans, half the receptions he's made in training camp so far have been on the slant, but not just like 4-yard receptions. It's a slant over the middle caught, and then it's either a touchdown or it's 15 yards, 25 yards, whatever it may be. And yes, it's so simple. Oh, you're just running a slant. What's the big deal? Well, when you're lining up as a corner against Mike, and sure, half of them, more than half, have been 3rd, 4th string cornerbacks against Mike Evans. But Mike has that ability to go deep, and he can beat you deep. So you have to respect what he can do
That's right.
further down the field that he gets a little bit of cushion and running that slant, and it's a ball game. And I get it. The slant, it's not the most exciting route of all time, but you know what's exciting? Converting first downs, scoring in the red zone, and putting points up on the board, which the Bucs were not doing yesterday. So I don't care how simplified it gets. When you're scoring 30 points, or Mike Evans is getting double-digit touchdowns again, like he has in the prior 2 seasons before last year, that's going to be more exciting than anything else.
No, you're exactly right. We have a super chat here, and we always want to give preference to reference to our super chat participants, and we have one here about Calijah Kancey from Bucs Basement. Kancey going down is a massive problem for the pass rush, especially with how bad the pass rush was last year. That's true, right? I mean, they don't want Calijah Kancey to go down and get hurt, but it happened. I think the byproduct of this, if you're looking for a silver lining, is more reps for Logan Hall. And
That's exactly what I was thinking. Sorry.
What I mean by that is in the 3-4 defense, you've got Vita Vea in the middle, you got Logan Hall on one side, Calijah Kancey on the other. That's your 3-man front. And then, of course, you've got JTS and Shaq Barrett at the outside linebacker positions. However, when they're in nickel, Todd Bowles will go with the 4-man front. That's 2 defensive tackles and then those 2 outside linebackers. And we've seen Calijah Kancey be that guy next to Vita Vea. So now you work the depth chart, and now Logan Hall is going to be getting those nickel rush opportunities. And Matt, more reps for this second-year player is only going to help him and accelerate his learning curve. You don't want to see this come at a fellow player's expense, especially a guy that is so special like Calijah Kancey. But Logan Hall getting more reps is not a bad thing either.
No, it's not. I hate that it was I mean, I would hate for any player to get injured, but it really, really, really hurts that it's Calijah Kancey. 1, because he was their first-round pick. A lot of excitement behind him. But 2, even without pads on, Calijah was proven that he's going to be an issue for opponents trying to block him and the Bucs defensive line. And I do agree. It does concern me with Calijah Kancey out for a little while, how this impacts the rest of the rotation with the Bucs defensive line. Now it makes it that much better that they signed Will Golston the day before training camp began, because now you have a little more depth there. But Logan Hall, we've said nothing but great things about him in terms of the muscle and the weight that he's put on to get bigger as a defensive lineman. We've heard coaches talk about that all he really needed was just more repetitions. Now he's going to get those reps in training camp. And I don't think we've seen a ton from him just yet, but they're also not in full pads. And so the trenches in general have been watered down to a degree. Hopefully Calijah Kancey can get back in time where they can really find the perfect window of Logan Hall gets more reps than he would have with Calijah Kancey around, and Calijah Kancey still gets enough playing time, whether it's the last preseason game or an extended reps in training camp, that he'll be good to go by the first game of the season. Because I don't want the Bucs to just throw him in there week 1. Hey, welcome back. Now just go right into the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we always give preferential treatment to our super chats. We have another one. LDBC is most wanted. Saludos PR. Do you think Jason Light is their best GM in Bucs history? Potential Ring of Honor. That's an interesting question about the Ring of Honor. I do think he is the best general manager in Bucs history over Rich McKay. Both of those GMs have Super Bowl rings on their resume. Right, 2002 for Rich McKay, who really helped kind of build the Buccaneers from nothing into something. But I will say this. While he certainly had some great moments as a general manager, he got a lot of help in the personnel side of things, from the standpoint of Jerry Angelo, who was the pro personnel guy, and then you had Tim Ruskell, who was the director of college scouting. Both of those guys on the pro and college side really helped from a personnel standpoint. And also, too, Sam Weish had just as much to do with the Bucs drafting of Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp in 1995 as McKay did. He was very involved in the draft, Weish was. And personnel was not exactly what Rich McKay was known for. Rich McKay was mostly a politician who did a good job of facilitating and managing But in terms of being a salary cap guy, that was more of John Idzik's role. That's Brad Idzik's dad. So John Idzik was kind of like the Mike Greenberg of the Bucs back then. And then with McKay, where he really helped was keeping the Bucs in Tampa with the push politically for the penny sales tax to help build the stadium that got finished in 1998 that we now know as Raymond James Stadium. So he helped serve a lot of purpose for this franchise. I'm not trying to diminish Rich McKay, but when you look at Jason Light, he literally built a Super Bowl team, and he'll be the first to say, with the help of his staff, but the buck stops with Jason Light. He is very, very involved in personnel, right? Mike Evans was his first draft pick in 2014. He was hired initially by Lovie Smith, and then he fired Lovie Smith 2 years later because that was the right move. He ended up bringing Bruce Arians. He was the only person that could have lured Bruce Arians out of retirement. He did so. They won a championship. He helped lure Tom Brady with his connections with Tom Brady and the trade for Gronk.
Right.
And we're kind of just like doing the Cliff Notes version of what Jason Light's done for this franchise. But yes, I think Jason Light has done more than any other GM, has had more success than any other GM, and has played a greater role in personnel than any other GM in terms of drafting Pro Bowlers, signing Pro Bowlers, trading for Pro Bowlers, etc. And I think that he is definitely number one all by himself, and I would say Rich McKay number two.
Yeah, I think the Ring of Honor, there's no question about it. I mean, they just put Bruce Arians in. Obviously, Jason Light played a huge part in bringing Tom Brady here and Rob Gronkowski, as you just said. Drafting the greatest offensive player in team history, I think, goes a long way. And I think the greatest or most underrated free agent signing of all time with Shaq Barrett, getting him and bringing him to Tampa and the 19.5 sacks his first year. And then obviously a huge part of winning that Super Bowl the next season in 2020. Yeah. You look at the people that he's drafted, you mentioned, and re-signing the people that he's drafted as well. Right. Currently right now with, with Jamel Dean and then Carlton Davis the year before. I think it's a no question Bucs Ring of Honor. And as far as best GM, I haven't been covering the team as long, but you look at a lot of the players, and it's really tough to argue against it.
Yeah. And Darius Miller brings up a good point here. To be fair, Light has Greenberg and Spytek. Well, credit to Jason Light for keeping Mike Greenberg, who was actually hired by Mark Dominic. And he's one of the lone holdovers from the Dominic regime, just because he saw the brilliance from a salary cap standpoint of Greenberg, who is the best salary cap manager in team history. That's a given for sure. Yeah. And then he's also promoted both Spytek, who he brought over from Denver. I mean, that's a Jason Light hire, bringing John Spytek over from Denver to replace John Robinson, who got a job as Tennessee's general manager. So I think you're going to see sooner rather than later John Spytek become a general manager for another team. And I think Greenberg is happy and content being assistant GM now as one of the right-hand men of Jason Light. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just a one-man show in the Bucs front office. Correct. Jason Light has a lot of help, but all of that help is his doing too. These were his hires, his guys, and I think, Matt, they're on the verge of having an absolutely fantastic draft class. And we saw one of those guys today just do it again. And it wasn't Calijah Kancey because he got carted off early. It was this guy right here.
Every single day, he continues to impress. Every single phase of the offseason continues to impress. From when he got drafted, he was one of my favorite picks out of
Servassier Dennis.
Yep. Yeah, Servassier Dennis, for those that were not aware. Then you go to OTAs, or Bucs rookie minicamp, didn't even get to OTAs yet, and he's making an interception. OTAs and minicamp, playing extremely well, has an interception on Friday's practice, and then bam, comes right back with another interception. Servassier Dennis on Baker Mayfield in a red zone situation, which, by the way, in a real game, he would have never got that interception because Ryan Neal blitzed on the play and would have sacked Baker Mayfield. But Servassier Dennis is the benefit because of it. He was known as a blitzer at the University of Pittsburgh. And
it's 7 sacks last year, Matt. 7
sacks. And you know what? But as we're learning,
the linebacker.
That's not all he can do. He
Right.
can drop back in coverage as well. And more than anything else, he can anticipate a play.
Yeah.
Sometimes they were close throws in a tight window,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like the quarterback's been making ridiculous, egregious plays where it's like, why did you throw that?
Yeah.
No, they're trying to get something done. And Servassier Dennis is saying, no. You're not throwing it anywhere in my radius because I'm picking it off and I'm taking it the other way for a pick six. Scott, he has been the best inside linebacker
Yeah.
during training camp. It's very early. Levante
Yep.
David's made some plays.
Right.
He had a sack today on a blitz.
Yep.
But Servassier Dennis has been better than Devin White.
Yes.
He's been better than KJ Britt.
Yep.
And he is a guy that sooner rather than later is going to be a future starter at inside linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It won't happen this year. But, I mean, next season, with all that's up in the air, an inside linebacker,
he's going to get one of those
Servassier
spots.
Dennis is an absolute gem of a draft pick.
Yeah, and he's going to go from being a starter, and then we're just going to chop off the TER at the end, and he's going to go from being a starter to a star. This guy, as I had one of our Bucs sources tell us today, is legit. He is as good as we're saying he is, and this is the opinion of the team, not just us watching him, but he stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, he will get in there and blitz. He drops in coverage, and you know what he does exceptionally well? He does not drop the ball. Every time he touches the ball, it's an interception. He's not just like knocking the ball down PBU. He's getting pick sixes and interceptions. And just has a tremendous football IQ. I remember when I interviewed him at the Combine to see if he had interviewed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the two guys that really stood out to me just from a cerebral standpoint, just having a conversation with them, were Cam Jones from Indiana and Servassier Dennis from Pitt. These guys just seemed like Todd Bowles guys. And Todd Bowles is one of the smartest, most cerebral football IQ coaches you're going to meet. He kind of demands that from his players. And that's Servassier Dennis to a T. But it's not just brains, it's brawn too. This guy's making some plays out there on the field and getting it done. So, we'll see what happens this year in terms of Devin White and how he plays, and Levante David. And if this is going to be the year where Father Time finally overtakes him, or if he can, beat the ghoul off one more year and still make impact plays at age 33. But yeah, Matt, I agree. Servassier Dennis will be a starter next year for this team at one of those spots, either the inside linebacker or the weak side linebacker in the Bucs nickel package. And
once the pads come on, I mean, we haven't even really seen Servassier Dennis blitz that much. Like, we've seen Ryan Neal, Levante has. Servassier known to do that, and we haven't seen it too much. But as you said, as the Bucs brass have been saying, he's legit. Another thing you can describe is Celsius energy drinks. Of course, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. You want to talk about legit, the Cosmic Vibe, the sparkling fruit punch, their newest flavor is one of the best around that you can possibly have. Ton of great flavors as well. Sparkling lemon lime, sparkling orange, Arctic Vibe. I believe you had that today, Scott.
I did.
I was drinking the sparkling cucumber lime. So a vast amount of flavors that you can get with Celsius. No sugar, no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product out there. So go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest location to pick up a Celsius energy drink, whether that's at your local Walmart, Target, convenience store, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And then once you know you love Celsius and you want more, get it in bulk with the subscribe and save on Amazon. I'd recommend getting the variety pack because, as we've mentioned, so many awesome different flavors and varieties of the spice of life. You can have it set up when you purchase that Celsius to have it sent to your residence every week, monthly, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want. Just make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com.
Yeah, the Cosmic Vibe is just, it's brand spanking new. We've got, I think, maybe a head start on some of the consumers out there, Matt, when Celsius shipped us some of that right before training camp. It's a great flavor. It's like a cherry fruit punch type flavor. These guys, I don't know what type of scientists they get to come up with these concoctions, but they nail the flavors, man. Their fruit flavors are spot on. And you had, as you mentioned today, the cucumber lime, which is really underrated. It's a fantastic afternoon flavor.
Very underrated.
Crisp, refreshing, perfect for summer when it's as hot as it was out there today. Today was ridiculous. But we're going to see the Buccaneers in pads tomorrow. So just a little reminder of our schedule here. We're 4:00 now. From now on, unless there is some kind of change in the plans, if we have a special guest who needs an evening slot, we're 4:00. So tomorrow we'll have a practice in the morning, and then we're going to have a podcast at 4:00. We'll of course do roll call at 4:20. Not today, folks. Right. Don't tell us today.
Sunday.
Tune in tomorrow. Yeah, Monday 4:00 at 4:20 on Mondays for roll call, and then the Buccaneers have a practice on Tuesday. It's a night practice, so that's from 7 to 9, and we're not going to do a podcast tomorrow because we want to cover tomorrow's practice. I'm sorry, Tuesday. Yes. Tuesday. No podcast on Tuesday, but we will have a recap practice on Wednesday, which is the players' day off. But we're going to recap the Tuesday night practice for you on Wednesday. So tomorrow, 4:00, no podcast on Tuesday, Wednesday, 4:00. And then what?
Same as Thursday, Friday as well.
Thursday and
Friday, 4:00, we'll recap those training camp practices as well. So really all you need to know is tomorrow, 4:00, nothing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all at 4:00.
Boom. There we go.
Scott, we haven't even really talked about Chris Godwin that much. We've talked a lot about Mike Evans, but Chris Godwin had the play of the day. Like a legit jaw-dropping moment. I hope the Bucs put the catch that Chris Godwin made on social media because we were literally right by it, and you see my jaw drop. I hope the Bucs capture my jaw dropping on this play. It was a deep ball about 40-plus yards down the field, a deep ball from Baker Mayfield, which – this one was actually caught. If I'm going to knock the quarterbacks, both Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, the deep ball has not really been on point just yet, at least with receivers and defensive backs in the area. Kate Otten, when he's wide open down the seams, I expect you to hit that. But Baker throws the ball up about 40 yards down the field. It's Chris Godwin. Another defender in there. The name is escaping my mind at the moment.
Keenan Idzik.
Yeah, Keenan Idzik was in there. There was a safety in there as well. And Chris Godwin kind of mossed him a little bit. He mossed Keenan Idzik a bit. Just leaped up in the air. I don't know if it's leaped or leapt, but jumped up into the air, soaring, comes down with it, lands on his feet. The crowd goes absolutely insane.
Baker Mayfield went nuts.
Wide receivers coach Brad Idzik ran all the way down, jumped in the air, and chest bumped Chris Godwin. He was probably the most hyped man, woman, or child in the area when that moment happened. An absolutely unreal play by Chris Godwin. And again, I really, really hope the Bucs social media team puts that one out because that was a fantastic play by Chris Godwin, who also scored a touchdown in practice. And if there were any doubts about Chris Godwin with what went on last season, they are gone, completely erased.
That's right.
He is loving this new season, this new offense, not having to rehab his knee. He is all systems go, and it's going to be a huge, I don't even want to say bounce back season because he had receptions last year, but Chris Godwin is going to ball out this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And Matt, what some of these leaping catches has done for Chris Godwin, and we saw the one today. We saw when he skied up into the end zone, right, and made that catch above his head the other day. Is it just shows you the explosion's back. It shows you that knee is just about 100%. If it's not 100%, it's like 99. And that's great to see. We're seeing the fastest version of Chris. We're seeing the most explosive version of Chris. And I'm telling you, with the amount of balls that Mike Evans is catching in practice, I mean, Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, they're not dumb. They throw to Mike. And Mike's getting open. And Mike is killing it with sideline catches, with a couple of go routes, with slants.
Fades.
Fades, end zone fades. We saw one today where he mossed Chris Izzian. Not hard to do. Izzian's like 5'8", Mike 6'5". But John Wolford, as you mentioned, just to kind of point that out, John Wolford, the third-string quarterback, threw back-to-back touchdown passes to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. The one to Godwin was right in front of the pylon. It kind of made a diving catch. The refs were out there. There's a little bit of a question: did he get both feet in?
Mike turned to the ref.
The refs said, yes, you're in. So Godwin scores. Then on the next play, John Wolford throws the fade to Mike over Chris Izzian. Boom, got the touchdown. And, Matt, it's the little things that we're starting to really see from Dave Canales and how this guy just gets it, right? Baker Mayfield has to develop a rapport with both Chris and Mike.
Yeah.
Kyle Trask has to develop the chemistry and the timing with both Chris and Mike. They're both in the running for the starting job, of course. John Wolford is not in the running. He is going to be on the practice squad this year as QB3. But as the 49ers have shown, you are 2 plays away from your third-string quarterback being in the starting lineup. And kudos to Dave Canales and Todd Bowles for sticking Chris and Mike in there with the third-string offensive line and the third-string quarterback going against the third-string defense and saying, John, throw some touchdown passes to these guys. Let these guys work on Pitts and Izzian and these rookies, right? Let them see star wide receivers to use kind of as a measuring stick for their development so far. But for Wolford to get some experience throwing to these guys, because what have we been saying all along about Kyle Trask? He was never given the opportunity to throw to these guys in practice. And at least now Wolford has a little bit of rapport with these guys, and they've made plays. They're developing some chemistry together. Hopefully you never see Wolford having to throw to these guys. But if in the event that either Baker or Trask get hurt or falter or whatever, and you have to turn to Wolford, at least you can draw from some of these experiences here. And it's just another way Dave Canales, Todd Bowles are getting this team prepared for the season.
I think the Bucs have a lot of many intelligent players on this team. John Wolford might be the smartest guy, because if you want to have longevity as a third-string quarterback that's trying to make the team every single season that you're in the NFL, when you get the opportunity to work with the ones, or in this case, Pro Bowl, All-Pro wide receivers, you better damn well make sure you get them the football. So what is John Wolford doing? When he's in there, he's throwing it to Mike Evans. He's throwing it to Chris Godwin, because this is his time to shine in training camp. If he wants to make a team, or another team is watching and he gets picked up there, it's not the most difficult of concepts.
Throw so what you're saying, Matt, is
to star players.
He's not throwing the check down to Chase Edmonds, nor is he looking for Kokeeft. He's going to Chris and to Mike, right? That's smart stuff. There's no doubt about it. Also, we should note David Wells continues to shine. Caught a couple passes today, including a touchdown. This is a guy that really is kind of putting the lockdown on this number 2 tight end position, ahead of Payne Durham and Kokeeft.
He is taking it by storm. And not only did he have a touchdown today, receiving touchdown, Levante David was guarding him. Levante David was guarding him on that play. It is really going to come down to, if David Wells can show that he can block even just a little bit, he's going to carve out a really nice role for this team. Because there were so many other, like Cody McElroy comes to mind, former Bucs tight ends, and
Tanner Hudson
as well, where Bruce Arians, who's obviously not the coach anymore, but he'd be like, it's great. They can be a receiver, but he's got to block. If you're a tight end, you have to block. And then they never really put it together as a blocker. And that's why, they weren't on the team, obviously, because he had Gronk and Cam Brate there, and a little bit of a different situation now with Cade Otton as the starter, but only in his second year. If David Wells can block, he's going to make this team and have an important role on this team. It's going to be great for prop bets as well, David Wells to score a touchdown. But, I mean, it's really impressive what he's doing. Like, what else can you really say? He's getting open. He's making different catches. He's scoring touchdowns. He's doing it left and right. And I get that it's in shorts and T-shirts, but someone has to do it in shorts and T-shirts.
That's right.
So why not get a head start, David Wells? So, a huge amount of credit to him for what he's been doing, because it's been every single day. It wasn't just like he popped off one practice. Hey, good for you, tip of the cap. No.
Right.
He's been doing it since the first day of training camp. And
he's had a long road too. He's a 6-year guy. Believe it or not, only 3 years counts because he's been on the practice squad for half of his NFL career at different stops. But he's 28 years old. He's the oldest tight end in the room. But yet Cade Otton has more production than he does just from his rookie season alone. Wayne here brings up something we haven't even talked about yet. I mean, it was a great day for the wide receivers because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin dominated, and so did David Moore. It seems like the veterans were having a better day than the rookies. And Russell Gage comes back today. We saw Russell Gage out there in individuals. Now, he was held out of the team part of practice, the 11-on-11s with that hamstring. I had a chance to talk to Russ after practice today. And in fact, he said, yes, it was that same nagging injury, the left hamstring, that bothered him last year. So he's hoping that this is behind him. He feels like the team was being extra cautious with him in terms of not letting him go the first week of camp. But he says, hey, better safe than sorry. When I come back, which is right now, I want to stay back and I want to play all 17 games. And when I talked to him, Matt, what you and I have kind of, surmised or kind of opined about with Russell Gage is he's not the biggest receiver, but he's not small. He's not the fastest receiver, but he's not slow. But where, his strength is, his superpower, if you will, was his quickness, the elite ability for him to cut in and out of breaks. And I think that's why in this offense, we've seen so many slants, right? And so many quick game type of things. And that's why Dave Canales was so impressed with what Russell Gage showed on film when he was healthy, was the ability to separate and use that quickness. But he said, yeah, man, it's like when you blow your hamstring, it's like that quickness is gone. And he says, he didn't say the word ordinary, but I think what he was trying to say was last year I was kind of ordinary because my hamstring wasn't firing. And that muscle is what gives you that explosion, that quick twitch to get in and out of breaks and make your cuts.
Yeah, this offense seems tailor-made for Russell Gage. And I think that's why we've heard Dave Canales go out of his way to talk about Russell Gage. Brad Idzik, when he was on this podcast, spoke a lot about how they can do great things with Russell Gage when he's fully healthy and out there. And, a lot of the touchdowns that Russell Gage scored last year were leaping, acrobatic type of plays that he brought down. That's half the touchdowns we've seen in training camp so far.
That's right.
Is Mike Evans leaping up and getting after it. The Chris Godwin touchdown, as we talked about. Cade Otton kind of had that today on his touchdown with Kyle Trask. This is an offense that rewards athleticism, probably more than most kinds of offenses or types of offenses out there. So if Russell Gage can get all of his speed back, he has the track speed. He did it at LSU. He's known for being quick more than anything else, really. And I think you just got to put last year in the rearview mirror. And I've been concerned about Russell Gage. I still am, but at least he was out there today.
Let's see what he can do now that he's healthy, right? I mean, we're so quick to write him off and say, well, he's going to slide down the depth chart. At the same time, to be fair, Trey Palmer has had some drops. He is not. He has not turned it on like he did in the OTAs. Raheem Jarrett has had some plays. I don't know that he has been super consistent either. Devin Tompkins has had flashes. I don't know that he's put it all together either. The guy we talked about that's kind of coming up is David Moore. Now, again, long way to go. This is like the first 4 practices.
Exactly.
3 more weeks of training camp. We have 3 preseason games. You're going to see some of these players rise and fall. Like we haven't seen anything really from Payne Durham yet. Sometimes it just takes rookies a week or 2 into camp, or maybe a preseason game or 2, or sometimes it's even into the first part of the regular season.
Scott, exactly. There's going to be a couple players we've already talked about this show or previous shows that do nothing in the first preseason game, and there's going to be guys that we haven't even mentioned yet that are going to excel in the first preseason game. That's just how it works, at this part of the season.
You're right, folks. If you want to excel in finding a new home, or maybe selling your home and getting the most money possible for that, or looking for a great deal on a house, well, folks, look no further than Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group. the official realtor of Pewter Report. It takes a full team effort to win a football game, and it takes a full team effort to win in real estate. The Eric Gross Group has done hundreds of transactions in this crazy real estate market, and they have the experience in all types of situations. Eric is an avid Pewter Report reader and a Tampa native whose father was stationed at the MacDill Air Force Base, so he's got roots here in this area. He and his team have the market knowledge, top-notch communication, and commitment to excellent service that sets them apart. With their strong team of vendors and a network of over 85,000 agents, the Eric Gross Group will turn your dream of buying or selling a home into a reality. Their clients are not just transactions. They develop lifelong friendships with these people. Don't let the stress of buying or selling a home keep you out of the game. Let the Eric Gross Group take the pressure off. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group. Check out their website, housesinfla.com, or give them a call at 513-907-4271. That's housesinfla.com. Go check out the website. It has got a tremendous layout, easy to navigate, and you can check out all of the properties and their listings right now. No matter where you are in your home ownership journey, whether you're moving to Florida or from Florida, you'll feel welcome with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. Again, visit housesinfla.com. We're going to have Eric on the podcast soon. We'll have him at a training camp practice and get his thoughts on the team and introduce himself to the Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers here on the Pewter Report podcast.
Yeah, that'll be great. Looking forward to that. We got another super chat.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Buck with your girl. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat. They say, have you guys seen the defense communicate effectively?
Yes.
Have you seen the quarterbacks identify the defense at the line of scrimmage and or audible? Well, to answer the first part of the question, yes, absolutely. That's something that Todd Bowles spoke about today in his press conference. It's something that Antoine Winfield Jr. mentioned in terms of his goals for this year is just to communicate even more than he already has. And that man on the screen right now in that photo, Ryan Neal, has been the engine that is the communication locomotive. He has been directing traffic left and right, putting guys in position, just chatting, making sure everyone's on the same page. And I think that's why, I know the title is about the wide receivers, but I think that's why we've seen a lot of pass breakups over the last 2 days with this defense, whether it's Zion McCollum, who's been fantastic the last 2 days, Carlton Davis with 3 as well. Ryan Neal is a jack of all trades, and communication is definitely one of those things that he brings to the table.
No doubt. Bucket with you, girl, Pewter people. This guy is the real deal in terms of a communicator, right? I mean, we've seen him do a ton of blitzing so far. I've said it before on the Pewter Report podcast. I'll say it again. This guy's going to lead the DBs in sacks this year. I'm going to say at least 4, maybe 5. Antoine Winfield Jr. had 4 last year. He is great at getting to the quarterback. So is Ryan Neal. I think this guy's in for a big year in terms of a slot blitzer as well. But to answer this question here, I noticed there was a play where the running back, I think it was Keyshawn Vaughn, was split out wide. The Bucs went empty. And before Devin White could even recognize it, Ryan Neal was pointing over towards Keyshawn Vaughn and directing traffic. And I'm not saying that Devin White didn't know what was happening or that he was lax in his duties or whatever. It's just that Ryan Neal noticed it so quickly. He just pointed and directed Devin White, who's getting the plays, and he knows this defense better than Ryan Neal does, but beat him to the punch in terms of, hey, Devin, like, you got the back out here. And you hear him, he's vocal. He's really kind of picking up this defense. Not to say that it's not going to be a busted coverage or something. This is his first year. He's still getting his feet wet in the scheme. But there are some similarities to a degree in types of coverage and the things that the Bucs do that Seattle does as well defensively. So it's not brand spanking new. There's a little bit of carryover. But, yeah, I mean, this safety duo between Winfield and Neal, I think is going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah, that's another thing that, again, I'm not trying to repeat everything from the press conference, but Todd Bowles was like, the communication between Antoine Winfield Jr. and Ryan Neal is at a great level already, and it's only going to get better as training camp and the season progresses. So you absolutely love seeing that, and the way that the NFL is today, you kind of build towards, I mean, you built towards the outside at first with like
Right.
your edge rushers on defense, but then it's about the inside linebackers and your safety room.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be fair to put the Bucs at the top of like the best safety tandem in the league. But
Right.
by week 18 of the regular season, I don't think it would surprise anybody if they're both in that conversation. I mean, Antoine Winfield Jr. going back to free safety, Ryan Neal with a lot to prove to be a full-time starter, that he should have been this a long time ago, and just always having that chip on his shoulder because he is an undrafted free agent. There is a lot to be excited about when it comes to this safety group for both of them.
I agree. And Matt, there's a lot to be excited about with our fantasy football sponsor. And that, of course, is Underdog Fantasy. Matt, Underdog Fantasy is back this year.
Yes, it is. It's so excited. Use the promo code Pewter if you want to get involved in playing Best Ball Mania, where they have $15 million in prizes and $3 million to the first place winner. The cool thing is there's no trades or free agent pickups or anything like that. You just set it and forget it. You set up your lineup. Pewter Report's going to be involved as well. You can play whenever. Obviously, Best Ball Mania comes up sooner when the season gets here. But as we said, $15 million in total prizes, $3 million to the first place winner. There's so many different games going on, head-to-head, over-under, pick 'em. So, if you want to do Best Ball Mania, fantastic. If you want to do different games with your friends or a league with your friends, you can do that as well. Use that promo code Pewter, Pewter, to sign up with Underdog Fantasy and get your team rolling today.
Yeah, the great thing about Underdog Fantasy is you get to draft your lineup for Best Ball Mania 4, and you set it and forget it because you pick multiple positions or players within the position, right? So you have like 3 quarterbacks, right? And you're going to have the opportunity to play that game all season. Then you can also play with the head-to-head over-unders and games like that on a week-to-week basis.
Those are some of my favorite because, if you're a Bucs fan and you dislike the Saints, you can kind of spite bet and pick Michael Thomas to have under and have Mike Evans have more yards than Michael Thomas. So a ton of different games you could do. And while we love football, it's not just limited to football. You have baseball right now, obviously basketball and hockey when those seasons come about. It's all year long with Underdog Fantasy. Yeah, college football too.
Bucket with your girl with another super chat. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Do you think the Bucs are going back or going back to having practices at the stadium with the fans? I hope so at some point in time. I think they're missing an opportunity to do that Tuesday night for the night practice. I'd like to see that at the stadium. It's going to be at the indoor training facility. I do understand that it takes a lot to kind of staff that from, a parking lot perspective, security, concessions, et cetera. It's a lot. It's like another game in some respects, but it's also another opportunity to sell concessions, make some money. You have free parking. I get that, but you can also sell a heck of a lot of merchandise at the team store and the kiosks around too. So you can kind of profit off of that. I think that alone would cover the expenses. And that way you get more fans to see the team, especially with Raymond James Stadium, probably going to be sold out again this year because fans were roped into buying 2 years worth of season tickets last year because they had to see Tom Brady, right? So you had to buy for 2 years. So I like the idea of having an annual game at the stadium. Plus, Matt, what does that give your kickers an opportunity to do? Kick at the stadium, right? That's different than Raymond James Stadium.
And even get a feel for at this certain time, the sun sets this way. And, there are certain things that you can kind of take from practicing at the stadium. I remember, I want to say it was 2 years ago, the Bucs had a training camp practice in Raymond James Stadium. And it was awesome to be there. And I also think, I know with the schedule, the Bucs pretty much have it mapped out, at least up until the joint training camp practice with the Jets. And then after that, there might be an opportunity to have a practice at Raymond James Stadium the following week before their last preseason game. And I hope they take advantage of it. I hope they're able to do a practice that fans can go out and watch and have a good time.
I'm with you. I wonder if, and we've seen it, I mean, we live in Florida. We've been down here for 28 years. August is not kind when it comes to thunderstorms, right?
No.
It was sunny.
We saw it as we were leaving today.
Yeah, sunny and hot today, right? We go inside, we work for a couple hours. All of a sudden, it looks like, Stranger Things, right? The sky is black and you've got thunderstorms from hell and all of that. So I just wonder if, and we've seen it before, I think, with some of these preseason games, Matt, at home. Sometimes you have those evening thunder showers. You don't want to have people, have lightning strikes and all that stuff, and you have to go to the car. So maybe that's part of it. Is having that. Maybe in the past they've had some issues with inclement weather, and they don't want to deal with that. In the indoor facility, guess what? If it rains, it rains. It's all indoors, and the fans can stay there and watch practice, and you have no interruption in practice, etc. So maybe that's it.
Yeah, could be. But great question by Buck with you, girl. And again, we appreciate the 2 super chats that you sent us.
And we appreciate all of the Pewter people we've been out there today. Nathan Elliott was one of them. Finally got to meet you, Nathan. That was awesome. And Nehemiah was another one. I had about 5 or 6 other fans, give Pewter Report some love from the stands. That's awesome. If you see us out there and we're well represented, we usually have 4, 5, 6 people out at practice, the Pewter Report gang. So if you see us, give us a shout out at practice. We'd love to meet you, shake your hand, say hello, etc. And we love interacting with our fans, not just here in the chat, in the super chats, but we also love meeting you guys face to face as well.
We want to have some fun as well. If you see us out in the wild at training camp, if you want to give us one of your best welcome, Pewter. Sorry, I even messed it up. Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners. If you want to drop that, if you want to drop a bodega, if you want to drop a face that runs the place, some of the little bits that we got going on, we'll tape it for you if you want to. We'll maybe even throw it up on a podcast. So again, we love being interactive with the fans. We want to do it as much as we possibly can. So and if you see us, if you want us to videotape you and put it on the podcast, we absolutely will. Nathan, I was there. I'm sad by myself that I didn't get to see you, but we'll make that happen over the next couple of practices for sure.
No doubt. We had a great time out at camp today. We survived the heat. Buccaneer players did too. Calijah Kancey, unfortunately had the calf injury. If you missed the beginning of the show, we'll just go back and watch it because they're all on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. But just to let you know, Kyle Trask, I thought, and I think Matt agrees, had his best practice ever as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Was exceptional today, and had a lot of help from his receivers, Chris Godwin, David Moore, and that guy, Mike Evans, right there, Matt.
Yeah, Kyle Trask throwing the ball around accurately, had some good zip on the ball, was decisive, whether it was running or throwing, had a lot more command of the offense, and again, using that 6'5" height to his advantage. So we've had a lot of Kyle Trask discussion, a lot of Baker discussion. We've written about it. We've talked about it. So make sure you follow us on all of our social media at Pewter Report on Twitter, now known as X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads as well. And of course, please like and subscribe and follow our YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV. We've had different reels out, other videos, and obviously the podcast 4 times and 5 times last week and this week, and a lot more to come. We're going to have another one tomorrow at 4 p.m. after training camp in the morning. By the way, if you're up early in the morning, I will be co-hosting.
That's right.
The Pat and Aaron show on 620 WDAE. Pat and Aaron will be live from the Buccaneers facility. So myself and WDAE's Seth Kushner, we are co-hosting the show. I'm very excited to get that going.
FM 95.3, and I'll be on with Pat and Aaron tomorrow at some point in time, probably in the 8 o'clock hour. So you get Matt and I.
Yeah, get me from 6 to 8, and if you want to call in, talk on the phone. We'll obviously talk about the Buccaneers and a lot of NFL storylines, and then hear Scott at 8 o'clock after as well. So if you want a lot more Pewter Report, you'll see it tomorrow morning. But that's going to do it for us for this show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We love you, Pewter people, and we will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
Bodega